Would anyone like to come up for a story this morning?
Oh, I know this story. I know. That you might tell it.
I might tell it different than you know it. That's always possible, isn't it? Well, it's good to see you all this morning. How's everyone doing?
Good.
You good? Are you awake?
Wide awake.
Most of you were here for Messy Church last night, right? Was that fun?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, this is a story that I tell every single year. And I tell it almost the same every single year.
But I didn't hear it.
But you didn't hear it last year, or the year before, or the year before that, because you were a long way away. Well, it's one of those stories, I guess, that you remember. So, it's like a lot of the stories, it starts in the Holy Land, the land where Jesus was born and lived and taught people about God, the desert, yes. But this story starts not in the little towns that we usually hear the stories, but it starts in Jerusalem,
That's a big city.
the big city of
I
Jerusalem.
think I recognized that.
Yeah. And the biggest, not only was it the biggest city, but the biggest temple, like the biggest church, was also there. And so what happened every year, at this time of year, what happened was that not only all the people in Jerusalem, but people from all across the country all traveled to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. Passover. Passover is a Jewish holiday, and it's a reminder of way back in Moses' time. Do you remember hearing about Moses at some point? The people were slaves, and Moses led them out of Egypt, and it's to remind them of gaining their freedom at that time. So they come, and this is a big celebration. It's like Christmas to us is a big celebration. This is their big celebration. And so, lots and lots of people started to gather in the city. So, now, even though this was a separate country, the king of this country did not live in this country, because the king was also the king of another country, and that was Caesar. And Caesar lived far away, but he ruled all kinds of countries all around the world. And so, Caesar wanted to make sure there was never any trouble, that things never got into a bad place in these countries. And so when so many people would gather, they would make sure there were more soldiers there to make sure everybody stayed in line. And those soldiers were led by a man named Pilate. Pilate. And Pilate would come into Jerusalem and bring all of his soldiers with him. There were lots and lots of them, because they wanted to make sure that everything stayed peaceful. Yeah. Whoops.
The soldiers are too tired today.
Now, Jerusalem was a city that had a wall around it, and there were two gates. There was a gate at one side,
That's a really tall gate.
and there was a gate at the other side. And so Pilate and all of his soldiers came through this gate, through the west gate, and arrived in the city. And so as that's happening, we meet Jesus. And Jesus hasn't been to Jerusalem. He's been in the small towns outside, and he decides it's time to go to Jerusalem to take his message of love and peace to the biggest city and to the biggest temple. And so he decides to arrive, and some of his followers come with him. Oh, I forgot one thing. Pilate came on a big horse.
Horse.
He was leading all these soldiers on a big horse. So Jesus' followers, a lot of them thought that rather than Caesar being king, who lived so far away, that Jesus really should be king, because he's the one that had a different way of looking at the world, that we should love each other rather than be afraid of each other. And so Jesus, along with these followers, decide to take this message into Jerusalem. And so they come through the gate, and all the followers, and Jesus was on a donkey.
I knew it. It was a donkey.
He came in on a donkey. And the people were so excited because they thought, our country could be such a better place if Jesus was in charge. Such a better place. And so they like to think that he was king. And so what they did to honor him is they took their cloaks off and they laid them down like a carpet for him to walk on. And they also took palm branches down out of the tree, and they laid all the branches down for him to walk on. So it was like walking on this soft, beautiful carpet. And as they're coming into the center of the city, they're shouting, "Hosanna, Hosanna! Hail to the new king! Hail to God's king!" And all of a sudden, Pilate on his steed, with all his soldiers, met Jesus on his donkey with his followers. I wonder what Pilate thought when he saw Jesus' parade. He might have thought, this guy thinks he could be king. Yeah. I wonder what Jesus thought when he saw Pilate's parade.
Why does he have so many soldiers?
Why does he have so many
I
soldiers?
think I should talk to him.
If that made me think maybe that Jesus thought he should talk to Pilate in private. Yeah.
Maybe seriously, we need all the soldiers to just keep these guys. So maybe I think we only need like one of these big armies.
Yeah.
Or at least two. Like
One
because
of
everyone
these.
knows about
I wonder what happened next.
Okay, that's going to be like jail.
Pilate takes Jesus to jail.
Really? No,
It's not gonna
I
happen.
know what's
You don't think that's going to happen?
I know it might happen. I know what's going to happen.
Well, that's how this next week unfolds, is what actually happens here.
But I don't think we'll be here.
But today, I would like us to imagine that we are part of this parade. And we're going to sing a great song, which means Hosanna in the language from South Africa. And I'm going to get my little drum, and we're going to parade around the sanctuary singing this. Is that okay? And Michelle's going to give you your banners, because every parade needs to have banners. Pardon me? What, the parade? Oh, there has to be children in a parade.